I heard a sermon, young Schuler, Dr. Schuler of the Crystal Cathedral. It was his son who was filling in for him and preaching a sermon. And here was the notes from his sermon. I thought it was one of the classic sermons I've ever heard. And it had 3 major points. Not 30, just 3. But they were so classic, and here they were for your notes. Number 1, if you think it's impossible, it isn't. That was his first point. Now, under the title, If You Think It's Impossible, It Isn't, he told a unique story. It's the story of Rich DeVos, founder of Amway. Rich DeVos needed a heart transplant. Critical. Young Schuler said, my father went to offer a prayer for Rich DeVos. And when he got there, he said, Rich, a little difficult to pray this prayer because for you to get a new heart, somebody has to die. And he said, well, I guess we'll just pray the good Lord's will be done. Now fast forward. Rich DeVos gets his heart transplant. That's one part of the story. But here's the rest of the story that's remarkable. Later, and not too long ago, Rich DeVos has the opportunity to have dinner with the lady who gave him her heart. You say, that's impossible. When I heard this, that's exactly what I said. The congregation that listened to the sermon, this is exactly what they all said. Impossible. You couldn't possibly have dinner with the person who gave you their heart. Here's what happened. There was a lady who needed, I believe it was a liver transplant. And many times it's best if the liver and the heart go together in a transplant. So someone who dies has donated their organs. This lady gets the liver and the heart as a single transplant, and now her heart is left over. And her heart goes to Rich DeVos. And that's how it was possible for Rich DeVos to have dinner with the lady who gave him her heart. Fantastic story. 20 years ago, couldn't have happened. Now, it's impossible. We say it's impossible, but it isn't. No telling what technology will do in the years to come. No telling what your faith can produce. No telling what can be done. That was a great point. If you think it's impossible, it isn't. Then the next point, if you think you're alone, you're not. Interesting. The Pledge of Allegiance in America says one nation under God. As a country, we really believe that in America, we are not alone. And sometimes all alone, meaning by yourself, doesn't mean that you are alone. Somebody's prayer reaches you. Someone's spirit reaches you. Someone's presence, even though they're not there, you sense it, you feel it. The telephone rings and you pick it up, and something told you that this was going to be a call from someone that you've wanted to hear from. That unseen magic. So we do believe when you think you're alone, you're not. Sometimes when I finish a rally or the extravaganza or some other presentation, here's what I say to everyone in my audience. I promise you when I leave here tomorrow, I will not leave you behind. I will take you with me in my thoughts and in my heart. And everyone senses that sure enough, I won't leave him behind. When I get together with my grandkids and my children, I will relate to them this experience. So the presence of this experience, the dynamics of this experience, the place we're meeting in, all of this, I will take all of this with me, and especially the spirit, the collective spirit of everybody that was here that made it so unusual. I take that with me. I not only take it with me, jumping on the airplane to fly back to America, I take it with me wherever I go, and every time I share the story, someone is impressed, someone is affected, because I didn't leave my audience behind. Then often I ask, how many of you have my name in your notebook, in your journal? Everybody raises their hands. Then I say, after we leave here and the lights are out and the place is dark, I go with you. My name is in your journal. But not just my name and not just my notes, hopefully, but my spirit, my good wishes, my prayer for you. I want my presence to follow you, so that when you relate to someone else the notes you've taken from one of my presentations, not only will the notes be there, but the Spirit will be there. So I thought this was an excellent point that young Schuller had. If you think you're alone, you're not. Then the next point was classic. If you think you know everything, you don't. How often we've learned this, right? From the time we were just young until probably the present time, to where there were times along the way when we thought we knew it all. We thought we knew everything. We thought we had it down. We thought we had it made. We thought we had this one locked. And sure enough, we were surprised later that we didn't know everything. We thought we had the answer to this problem. We thought we had all the answer. But as it turned out, sure enough, we didn't have all the answers. Always surprised, thinking we know everything, thinking we've got it. Then sure enough, something comes along to prove us wrong. But that's how we grow. And our own ego at times wants to believe that we do have the answers, that we've arrived. And then a touch of humility has to come to prove to us that we really don't know everything. We think we know everything about our business, but I'm telling you, we have a lot to learn. No telling what we can do if we keep this learning process. But now, here are some leadership studies, and I want to give you the list first, and then we'll come back and we'll go through this list and take them one at a time. Opportunity, ability, inevitability, and rationality. Here's the first one, and that's opportunity. Opportunity means springtime, to be able to recognize this is a good time. This could be the spring we've been looking for, with all of the components to make spring unique as we see it through the summer and harvest it in the fall. They seize the moment, and that's what you must do with opportunity, is to seize the moment. Whether the moment might be someone you see standing there and you say, I should introduce myself and tell my story, or at least say hello and see if the window will open a new opportunity. Seizing the moment, not letting opportunity slip away. Be a student of when it's the right time. Be a student of when this is the moment. This could be the year. The first 3 months of the next year to set up the year 2000. You say, I'm going to recognize this as a new opportunity for me to really pour it on these first 3 months. I'm calling it springtime. Putting together an artificial spring. In an industrialized society, it's hard to recognize when is spring, when is summer, when is harvest. So sometimes you have to sort of manufacture a spring. Learning to recognize opportunity, be a student of opportunity. Next is ability. Human ability, as we, ponder and think back over as much history as, we've mastered, of what human beings have done in the last 6,000 years, and especially what human beings have done that we know more particular about the last couple of 100 years, since the birth of America, especially us who are Americans. But the last, let's say, 1,000 years of the Renaissance, walking hopefully out of the Dark Ages, when there was a whole burst of freedom, of thought, craft, artist, genius, music. It seems like all of these unique architecture, all of these things sort of began to awaken almost simultaneously. And within a few short years, everything seemed to be bursting forth like a variety garden called the Renaissance. But that helps us to understand human ability is just incredible. Given the right moment, given the right opportunity, given the right climate, given the right season, human beings can think, create, and do the most extraordinary things. It was there, but nobody ever recognized it. It was there, but nobody offered them a helping hand saying, come, we'll teach. Nobody offered the opportunity to say, come, we'll recognize. We will help you start, we will help you build. Not having that opportunity before and now having it, we've watched the most extraordinary things happen with people who seemingly others said didn't have the ability, but sure enough they did. Now it's awakened. There's a unique story talking about incredible ability of a university student who was being given an incredible award. He was in mathematics, and this was an incredible award of mathematics, and the ceremony was extra special. And here's why. This young student in his mathematics class one day was just sort of nodding off, and when he sort of woke up, the class was leaving. So he gathered up his books and prepared to leave, and then he looked up at the blackboard and saw two mathematical problems. When he looked at these two mathematical problems on the board, he thought, well, that's the assignment, for the next class. I better jot those down. And so he jotted down those two problems, mathematical problems, and then hurried out with the rest of the class. When he got home that evening, he started working on these problems. And he said, these are the toughest mathematical problems I have ever seen. There seems to be no answer. There seems to be no answer. And he worked with both of them. And he just literally almost tore his hair out saying, at first they seemed fairly simple, but I can see right now there is no answer. There is no answer. But finally, one of them that he had really struggled with, he finally found the answer, or thought he had the answer. And he, packed up his notes, and when the next class was opened up, he offered his paper to the teacher. And little did he know, when he offered his paper to the teacher looked at what he had done, and he said, I jotted those two mathematical problems down. He said, I've wrestled with them. There didn't seem to be any answer. Finally, I got a breakthrough on one of them, and here's the best I can do. Well, the teacher was astounded. And the reason is because the teacher had put up on the blackboard the two mathematical problems that the world had said was unsolvable. These were the two mathematical problems that could not be solved, and everybody agreed. And lo and behold, the teacher checked, and for sure, he had solved one of the world's unsolvable problems. Now, and he was getting this incredible award for having solved this problem. Now, here's the unique part of the story. When he wrote those two problems down and took them home to go to work on them, he didn't know that they were two of the world's mathematical unsolvable problems. Great story. The human genius is limitless. The possibility for thought is so incredible. The unique thing about thought and spirit, it has no restriction. It has no, it's not like, a physical body moving through space and time. You can only go so fast. An airplane now can only go so fast. Even the speed of light can only go so fast. But here's what's incredible. Thought and spirit, travels faster than the speed of light and has components that, nothing else can match. The law says that, two bodies cannot occupy the same space at the same time. It's impossible. It's either one or the other. But what's amazing is when you share, you receive. Instantaneously giving out and getting back, it's so extraordinary. These are the possibilities of the human brain, the ability to think and to ponder and to wonder and to figure things out. Now here's what I want you to discover in this study, and that is your own ability. Part of it you discover as you go, skill by skill, language by language, ability by ability. Yours can grow. You've got it. The key is to use it. Yes, you can learn to do this, but how about this, and how about the next step, and how about the next step? Don't stop. Now that you've gotten started, don't stop on your journey to study and tap and utilize your own personal ability. Here's the next one that's vitally important, and that's the study of inevitability. As leaders, we must be students of inevitability. What is inevitable? Here's a little scene. 300 feet from Niagara Falls in a little boat with no motor and no oars. We call this scene inevitable. It's over. If you find yourself in such an unfortunate position, it's already lost. 300 feet from Niagara Falls, little boat, no motor, no oars. It's over. It's already done. Even though you haven't crashed over the falls, even though that experience hasn't yet occurred, you're now in this unfortunate position, and it's called inevitable. I raise this issue because what you don't want to be caught in is in those inevitable positions, where either through carelessness or whatever, rather than find yourself 300 feet from Niagara Falls, if someone would have painted the roar of the falls sufficiently for you way upstream, or maybe they had seen an experience of someone who reached that inevitable point, and then they were lost. If enough of those scenes were painted, then you probably wouldn't have been so careless to have found yourself in that position. And that's really what life is all about, learning from the experiences of others that have either witnessed or have been in these, inevitable positions where because of mistakes and because of failure and because of carelessness, they have found themselves in this inevitable position, and sure enough, it was too late. You crossed the line. We must teach our children that there are certain points in life that are inevitable. The disaster is inevitable. The heartbreak is inevitable. I learned it in economics. I found out early, you could make $5,000 a month and go broke. And way back then, $5,000 a month was a lot of money. And I used to say, how could you go broke if you made $5,000 a month? And the answer was simple: spend $6,000. And if you're making $5,000, it's easy to spend that other $1,000 and just not realize it. It just gets away. So it is easy to go broke making $5,000 a month, just spend $6,000. And it's inevitable. If you don't change your ways, if you don't recognize it soon enough, if somebody doesn't come along and sort of ring the alarm bells quick enough, sure enough, the inevitable will come to spend more than you. One of my friends says, if your outgo exceeds your income, your upkeep becomes your downfall. And there finally comes a point when it's inevitable. So don't find yourself there, but be a student. If I keep up my present direction, where will it take me? If I keep up my present disciplines, or where will that take me? And my lack of disciplines accumulated over some period of time, where will that lead me? If you don't get enough of this nutrient, it's inevitable over a certain period of time. And this combined with this, now it is truly inevitable, someday too late. And unless there's some adjustment, somebody to tell the story, you say, Mary, it's inevitable. So the key is to be a student of inevitability so that you don't find yourself in that impossible position where you've crossed the line and now it's too late. Next, and the last one, is to be a student of rationality. How to be a speed thinker. How to grasp problems and take them apart and put them back together in rapid fashion. How to ponder something and then make sure that it fits you, it fits your philosophy, it fits what you want to accomplish. Rationality, very important subject to study. Learning to put things through your own mind. And we are usually only going to act on something that's important if it makes sense to us. Now, sometimes what makes sense to us leaves us still a little bit short of what we should know, for the full expanse of knowledge to do a lot more things. But we can only really move as quickly as things make sense to us. Sometimes we step out by faith, but it makes sense to us to use our little faith. It makes sense to us to take a chance. It makes sense to us to make the investment first and then hope for the harvest. But if it doesn't make sense, if it isn't rational, then we're probably not going to act. We have to learn to study, our own rationality, what makes sense to us, and then here's what is the opportunity we have, is to try our best to make it make sense to somebody else. If you make the presentation in such a way that it's obvious, it's logical, I can see it, it makes sense to me, that's the way it seems to be, so we will act on that. If you'll get good at that, I'm telling you, you can affect a lot of people's lives. Now, here's the best rationality. We call it common sense. Humans have been given this extraordinary ability to use their brain power to come up with what we call common sense. Right? Yes, I've heard all of this, but common sense tells me that looks like that's an exaggerated story, not a real story. Common sense tells me. So part of it is to trust your common sense, but also to be willing to expand your common sense. What seemed to be common sense, 4 or 5 years ago, was a little short. Now I understand common sense is to think of it this way and this way. So this subject of rationality is vitally important. Continually looking for ways, whether it's style or content or product or presentation or understanding. Keep studying the craft to make sure you keep up with the latest, not only in the technology of developing products. So the responsibility of leadership, goes all the way from the top to the bottom. And wherever you find yourself today, myself in my position here, my position as a father, you've got to be a student father. If you're a mother, congratulations. I advise you to continue being a student mother. How could you be more effective as a mother this year versus last year? What new stories could you gather that would be valuable when you have a chance to talk to your children about some specific challenges or problems? That's called continually to being a student parent. Because we should all continue to be students. Many of you have already become leaders, but here's the key, and that is to be a student leader. Always studying ways to make your leadership more effective, your communication more dynamic, your understanding more expansive, your compassion a little deeper, your willingness to listen, a little better, comprehending and turning it into something valuable that you can give back, that mechanism now starts to work better and better, working better as each year passes. A student leader. And leaders, of course, are not the only ones that need to be students.